Welcome to Off Watch, our weekly interview series where this week is the turn of Joan Vila, navigator for Mapfre in the last edition, but somebody who first got involved with the race 30 years ago as navigator on board Fortuna Extra Lights, but also somebody who's been there at some major twists and turns in the sport of sailing. From the America's Cup, from setting records around the world, if you look at those key moments, you will find Joan Vila woven somewhere into their story. So we hope you enjoy this interview. If you do, you can like the video, subscribe for many more, and in the comments below, we're always taking your ideas as to who would make the perfect guest. Enjoy. Joan Vila is one of the best navigators in the world. He's had incredible successes. He has campaigned for the America's Cup multiple occasions, winning it twice. He has done the ocean race on multiple occasions, winning it once with Ilbrook in 2001-2. And of course, he set a record in the Jules Verne Trophy round the world on board Banque Populaire. Now, that's only a taste of some of the remarkable achievements that this man has done. So, Juan, thank you very much for joining me. There's so much that I want to touch on. There's so much that I want to ask you about, from the incredible man overboard, on board with the 89-90 edition of the race. I want to ask you all about leaving the BMW Oracle boat stuck head to wind on the start line in the America's Cup. You know, I want to get to that incredible last edition that we've had of the race. But before I do, I want to read you a couple of quotes from your teammates in the last edition. So this one is from Antonio Netti, and he says, he doesn't mind being wet. He doesn't mind sleeping on the floor. He doesn't mind not eating. He's one of the hardest sailors I've seen in my life. And Blair Tuke had this to say: he helps with stacking, goes to the bow to lower sails, and does all kinds of things. He's always ready to roll up his sleeves and work with you. That's not normal behavior from a lot of navigators that I've sailed with. So when you step on board a boat and you're there as navigator, how do you like to fit into a team? How do you like to be seen?
Yeah, well, just one more of the team. I think the key to success on a team is just that everyone is contributing as much as they can to the team. So just one more, not seeing me as a navigator, but just like another sailor. Yeah, I know there's many people that don't like people to ask them questions, but I'm just happy for everyone to come, understand what we're doing, where we are, and so forth. So no, I think my colleagues are too kind with me, I think. But anyway, I like to help with another sailor on board for sure.
So there's one more quote though that I didn't read, and this one was also from Antonio, and he says, so he's talking about you. He's so tough, so much so that to drink coffee, he takes the envelope, takes the bag, opens it up, and puts the coffee granules, the powder, directly in his mouth. There's being tough, and then there's some interesting behavior. Are you somebody that's doing this because you don't like to take the extra weight of a cup and a spoon? Or are you somebody that is just, I'm working hard, I don't have time to make the coffee, I'll just eat it?
Yeah, I think it's more about time. It's just that sometimes you're just woken up, need to go on deck or do something, and then you're a bit rushed on time. So that's where I developed these kind of skills. But no, it's just after that I also drink a little bit of water. So it doesn't matter if it mixes down inside or it mixes before coming in. But yeah, it's more about the time. So yeah, just people start seeing me with doing this, and then suddenly it just became like a sort of a legend.
Surely it can't taste that good, but fine. I understand the time thing. I wonder whether have you always been this tough and this sort of ready for the battle? Because we talked about the last edition in a way, everyone was saying, oh, the Southern Ocean legs in particular was very tough. It was really difficult waves, wind. It was a hard year. But you look back at some of the races that you've done with the ocean race. I mean, you did the 89-90, but the one that I think really stood out for me in terms of toughness was 93-94 when you were on board with
Galencia?
Yes. And on leg 2, there were boats with rudders breaking off. You had delaminating. Back then when you started, did you still have that kind of ability to weather the roughness?
Well, I guess I think that's where it all started, right? At this time, especially in the Fortune Extra Light and Galicia, my second one, we were all quite young, and basically also less experience, obviously, in doing round the world races. So it was a whole of a new world for us. So we kind of had all the energy to just do well and push as much as we could. So we didn't really realize that we were tough. Probably sometimes actually we were a little bit risking too much, and especially obviously in the first one. And as you mentioned early on, we had a man overboard, and that's probably seeing now in hindsight and seeing with a little bit more experience, obviously that I could almost see myself like a bunch of young guys just going crazy around the world with just trying to push as much as they could, but obviously with not much brains to sometimes to put the throttle back a little bit.
Well, let's talk about that man overboard, because it's a remarkable story. I mean, before we get into it, let's just let anybody listening who doesn't know, this is a good story. It works out well. I mean, it was a remarkable recovery of Geordie. I think it was the crew member that fell overboard. I didn't know about this until one day when we were working in the office in Alicante. You were at sea. He came into the office and did a live chat with you. And it's remarkable to imagine the bond between, a sailor and the crew when you've been through something like that. But in your own words, like what happened there? Because as a young navigator, this is your moment. This is a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it was everyone's responsibility. So I think when you hear a man overboard call, that's that's the last thing you want to hear on the boat. But suddenly, just the adrenaline kicks up, and somehow it just comes automatically. Would say, okay, I'm the navigator, so I'll need to go and just need to find a position. So just obviously we didn't have GPSs at this time, so you couldn't just click up the man overboard. We had some sat nav, but this was these sat navs where you had a position if you were lucky every 2 hours or so. So it all had to be kind of dead reckoning. So knowing the timings and the headings that we were doing. And luckily he had a radio beacon as well that I could actually hear it. So that's what's like a kind of RDF or directional finding beacon. So I just switch it on, and occasionally it would give me some kind of rough direction as well, where to search him. But we lost obviously visual sight of him because there was quite a few waves, and then we had to take the spinnaker down. So it was just in a moment where we were changing from one spinnaker to another. Then a squall came in, and then it just was more like 30, 35 knots. And basically he had one of the braces that hit him and just went overboard just with the bad luck. That was the time where he was unclipping to go a little bit further forward. So so everyone, but the guys on deck did an awesome job as well of just trying to keep track of him. And the interesting thing is that one of the indications as well that helped us see where he was the kind of the birds that were kind of around him. Obviously, the birds are probably pretty hungry there, and they saw something that had the potential of being food at some stage. and then you could see like some birds just staying there steady. So say, oh, that must be where he is, because obviously they would be looking for something that, or interested in knowing what was there on the water. It took us. I think it took us like, I don't know, 14 or 16 minutes, something like this.
Yeah, I think it's 17 minutes in the records, which is astoundingly quick. 17 minutes.
I think the water temperature was like 2 or 4 degrees, something like this.
Yeah.
It was a fair bit south. And luckily he had the survival suit on when he went overboard. So he was, obviously it was kind of wet and when conditions were rough, we pretty much all were wearing survival suit. He had all his gear on. He had the obviously the life jacket, which worked quite well and helped him stay afloat. And he had also the radio beacon, which he activated as well. Obviously, at this time it was all manual activated, so he had to activate it. He had to just bring it up as much as he could. So all these little things just help us. And then obviously when we came in, it was a bit of a frenzy. So we obviously, you do early in the race your training if this happens, but it's very different if there's big waves. And it's something that is real. Luckily at the end we.
Well, the one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I remember seeing the interview with you and him when he was in the office and you were out at sea, and you were saying that when you picked him up out of the water, he was very calm. He was very, very relaxed.
It was funny because you could see him on the water and he was seeing the boat, and from the water, he told us, calm down, I'm okay. So he must have seen us like everyone just panicking or anything like this, because from him on the water, he was the one that just told us, easy, I'm okay. So instead of being the opposite.
I wonder with something like that, very early on, as you say, you were young, all of us have to learn, whether we're sailing a boat or whether we're driving a car, you have to learn sometimes you need to slow down. With something like that happening very early on, and then in the next edition, like we were saying, you had delamination when you were in the Southern Ocean, boats with things coming off. When you were on Ilbrook, and we'll get to that in a minute, but there was a point where you had water in the forward hatch, and things can get very scary. With the last edition, through the Southern Ocean, all the boats got through, Vestas with the mast coming down, but that was sort of past Cape Horn. Do you ever see anybody, as the boats get stronger, do you ever see anybody getting complacent about going into the Southern Ocean? Is it important to remind yourself that going into the Southern Ocean is serious business?
Yeah, it's important in general to have respect for the sea, especially in the Southern Ocean. But I think every time you go on the water, it's you can't lose the respect. Anything can happen. Even obviously close to shore, when you think that is a good day, might turn up in a bad day quickly. So it's important. Well, first to be trained, aware, just go through all the procedures like forecast, safety, everything. But again, in the Southern Ocean, especially, it's a lot of respect. I don't think that anybody gets complacent. Everybody knows that when you go to a Southern Ocean lake in the ocean race, then you're really going in one of the difficult legs, and obviously it's going to be tough because it's going to be windy sometimes. You're going to be like a lot of hard maneuvers. Going to be sail changes in difficult conditions. So it's going to be a little bit of sleep. It's hard to sleep when the boat moves a lot, and so it's all these things. But also you have to be careful, and obviously it's you can do as much as you can to minimize the risk, but there's always a risk in when you go offshore and when you go ocean racing.
Let me ask you one more question then about the Southern Ocean, because one thing comes to mind, which was in the last edition of the Ocean Race with you and Dongfeng, and I spoke to Xabi Fernandez doing one of these interviews, and I spoke to Charles Cordrelier, and I asked them both about the incredible few days when Mapfre, Dongfeng race team, and jibe all the way down the bottom of the ice limit. You, everybody on Mapfre, everybody on Dongfeng, you were working your crew so hard. How comforting is it when you're a navigator and you're asking your crews, look, you can have 15 minutes sleep, then I'm going to need you up because we're going to jibe again. How good is it to see them survive and go, yes, we can do this? You know, did you ever have any doubts about asking them to work that hard, whether they could do it?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone is just going for obviously the victory and having a boat close to us, like in this case, it just motivates everyone. So the problem there is that we started by saying, okay, we're just going to jibe every hour. We want to stay close to the ice limit, and then Dongfeng, I think he jibed early, so just made a gain on us. So then we tried, okay, we'll do half an hour, and then we ended up just pretty much jibing every 15 minutes. Oh. But everyone seeing the other boat, it was really just, no, we're going to go for it. So everyone was really pushing hard. It's those things where you don't even have to ask. It's just everyone just saying, no, let's, even telling you, let's go. It's obviously that we're going to make a gain there, so let's do it. Yeah, that was obviously a tough time, especially because of the lack of sleep. It was like I think it was close to 24 hours probably, just jibing. So it's like 24 hours every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes sometimes. Sometimes we had a little bit of a relaxed time. Maybe we could get into 1 hour if the wind shifted, and we had a longer jibe just before the ice limit. But yeah, and then on top of that, obviously you can't really see the ice limit. So I had to make sure that we don't get into the forbidden area and we don't get penalized. So and then also you want to go as close as you can over there. So obviously we always leave like a little bit of 100 meter safety or something like this. But yeah, you want to really do it at the time. So sometimes it was tricky because they say, okay, yeah, but no, there's a good wave. There was windy, obviously. They want to jibe in a wave. So no, let's wait and say, no, you have to jibe now. Come on. It was, yeah, lots of jibes in windy conditions and also, yeah, and then all the stacking that comes in, all the stuff is not just the maneuver time, but it's also then just moving the sails to the right side and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, for all of us thinking about our weekend sailing, a good jibe is maybe 20 seconds. A good jibe on a 65 offshore is, like you say, 20, 25 minutes. Did you have to, thinking about how hard you were working your crew on all of the boats, everyone was, and how many people there were doing the ocean race in the last edition who were very new to ocean sailing? I mean, famously on board Mapfre, you have Blair Tuke, incredible sailor, not that much ocean race experience. What did someone like yourself, who's done so much, not just in the ocean race, but also record-breaking attempts, what pieces of information, advice did you give the young sailors before you went off on a leg like the Southern Ocean legs? What have you learned that's so important to do?
Well, not special, especially, I mean, Blair, it would be hard to give him advice. He's really full on and really, really pushing. Obviously, he's very competitive and he's just a sailor, so it's just a different race. Obviously, before the race, we had a lot of offshore sailing, so we bonded all the team, all the crew together. But no, just doing my job of a navigator, answering his questions, what he wanted to know, where we are, why we're doing things, and what the options are. Just get his input. But not. You don't really need to. I don't think you, even to the young sailors, you don't really need to give them some advice. Just if they have questions, obviously you answer about how your experience, and you share your experience. But apart from this, then they're definitely the best sailors you have around. So it's probably the opposite. He could give me some advice on how to do a few things, some little things on deck for deck work and so on. So he could definitely get advice me from him rather than the opposite.
I'm going to ask, this is a silly question for the interview, but just for myself, I'm really interested to know. One of the things that's been incredible about doing this interview series is I get to talk to some really famous sailors who I've spent a lot of my sailing life looking up to, like yourself, Charles Caudrelier, and, amazing people, like really incredible people. When you go sailing with people like Blair Tuke, even with all that you have done yourself, winning the America's Cup, do you go, wow, I'm sailing with Blair Tuke, I'm sailing with Xavi Fernandez, gold medalist, and do you get a chance to enjoy those little things?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, just sailing with those guys is a pleasure. Sailing with Blair, sailing with Xavi, have a lot of respect for them for what they've done, and obviously at their even obviously younger age, the amount of experience they already have, it's amazing.
I want to ask you about Xavi, but because I know you hadn't sailed with Xavi before you did the last edition, but I'm going to wait, because before I do that, I want to get to this topic of navigation, because I think it's a really interesting position on the boat, which is very hard to understand unless you have done it yourself. So for that, let's go to your Banque Populaire, Jules Verne, round the world. And I just want to understand the role of the navigator, because in something like a record-breaking attempt, or even, just an ocean leg, your preparation for this is months in advance. A sailor, you can pack your kit bag, you can turn up to the boat, you can go. How much work do you have to do beforehand?
Yeah, it's a lot of preparation. Obviously, preparation is probably 90% of the key to the success. You can't really get into a good end of a competition without a good preparation. So on the navigator side, is basically studying history, as much information you can have from obviously the historical attempts, what's been done, how they gone, why they've done this route, what so on. Try to understand that. Then go through just a bunch of history, the last 10 years or so, and then just try to, with your polars, try to route your boat and see what the options, how the routes would go, and try to understand why, and try to have a little bit of an understanding what could be the more some sort of unsafe or even probably just not so safe routes for also even for the time, just because you might end up into a dead end if the forecast changes a little bit. So just try to understand all that prior to the race, and obviously on top of that, just try to get also your racing tools ready. So all your software programs that you're going to work with, improve that, set it up, and so forth. So that takes some time. Fortunately, in the case of Banque Populaire, I had a great navigator with me, which was our onshore router, which was Marcel Van Trist, and that makes things so much easy. So that was good. And then obviously on top of that, you have to prepare with the crew, with the skippers, just have a talk of what the thoughts are, when to, as we said, the beginning when we need to push harder, when we need to back up a little bit and not take so many risks, and just building all these communication with the skipper as well and so forth. You do that as well but that comes normally through training as you do with you bond yourself with the other crew and all the team together.
It's so much work. I mean, it's just so, as you say, it's 90% preparation. I wonder, as somebody who was sailing, like you said, before the GPS that we all use so easily now, you've seen so many tools develop. What's easier? What's harder? I imagine, in the past, you're navigating a slow boat. You haven't got the advantages of all the very clever wind models, tide models, and all the data. But because the boat is slow, well, you can only plan so many moves ahead. Your options are very simple. Now you have all these incredible tools, but the boats are so quick. You're having to plan so far ahead. Is one easier than the other one? Has it become more difficult because the boats are faster?
Yeah, I think it's different. It's hard for me to say if it was difficult earlier or later. Obviously, early on you didn't have as much information, but also you didn't know many times where you were, where the ice was. Now you know where the ice is. There's like satellite detection that picks up these large icebergs or areas that that there's going to be ice, and there's good tools, especially on the weather and ocean side. Things have improved a lot in these times, and in the early times our weather information, basically we had this facsimile that you just tuned to radios, and you had to radio facts, and you had to interpret the weather maps, and you say, oh yeah, there's the more breeze. You might have had, like, if you're lucky, like forecast to 24 or 48 hours. And then after that, you didn't know where you were going. So it kind of was much harder to elaborate or to have confidence in your tactics. So you also work with climatology and see what the normal routes would be and what used to be the best. So you'd work a little bit of history. Now you have much information, so now you're as a navigator, your job shifted from just working with the tools, just objective tools and weather routings and software and so forth to and then interpret that. Obviously, everyone in the last Volvo had the same tools, but sometimes the routes were different or thoughts were different. So there's obviously a work of interpreting the weather data just to find the best strategy for the boat.
And I imagine with more information, more data, like you say, better models, I imagine that there's more pressure on you as the navigator. Back in the old days, you could say, well, I had a forecast for 24 hours, but we've been sailing for a week. So, I'm doing my best. Do you find that now as a navigator, people assume that you are going to know exactly what the wind is going to do? And if you're wrong, do people, point the finger and look at you a bit funny?
Well, what the wind's going to do, it just depends on the obviously numerical models forecast. And I think what you need to do is basically just a little bit communicate how much trust you can have on this particular forecast and so on, and especially how far you can trust the forecast. I mean, you can do a strategy from the beginning of the leg to an end of the leg, and I think the key is explaining this to the whole crew and watch captains and skipper and just knowing. And sometimes they have comments that you say, oh, so I haven't thought about this, and that might be a good point. And then you just look at, or you just relook through the data, go through it again, obviously there's I I think there's always been the navigator is at the end is one of the key persons to decide a strategy. Is the one just that goes through all the information. So obviously the skipper is also important in elaborating the strategy, but at the end the decisions will be as good as how you interpret and go through the information and the recommendations you might be able to make. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure these days because especially everyone has the same tools than the others. I remember on the first round the world races, we kind of look at what the other boats, what kind of tools they had, and I think and obviously or some other boats would come also to our boat and see what tools that we have from everything, not just navigation, but also like safety especially. So obviously the safety aspect was more shared between and experiences between all the other teams early on. Now pretty much we are told what safety equipment to bring on board, and it's actually almost, it's not the responsibility of the organizers, but the organizers take up a lot of responsibility on that field.
It's interesting that you say that sort of one design aspect of safety equipment. Obviously in the ocean race, one design aspect of boat, at least with the last two editions. And as you say, a one design aspect in weather tools. This is your information. This is what you're going to get. You all get the same. And I wonder, do you prefer that? I mean, I know with Ilbrook back in 2001-2, you could submit, these are our 10 websites that we're going to be using. And there was the controversy about, did you have access to another website that no one else did? In the end, you didn't. It was all fine. But it creates suspicion. Do you prefer it now that it's just the same?
As long as the tools are enough and they're good, I think it's better than everyone has the same tools. So at least the aspect of suspicion of having extra information, which it's always been there and it's going to be there if everyone just looks at their, or just decides what information do they want to get on board. So it makes it probably fair. I think the important thing is that you have enough tools that you can or enough information that you can do your job. So obviously, in the last one, if we had to change something, I'd say probably just getting satellite pictures updated more often. That would be best. But apart from that, I think we had the tools that the navigator would need. So I think it's fair enough that everyone has the same information, and that makes it equal for everyone. And it takes also a little bit of work from us from the beginning of the race to look through all the information. We obviously look still through it before the race through extra information or extra data, but it takes off the amount of work of, like as you mentioned, like saying, okay, what websites can we use, which can be better, and why these and not that one, and so forth. So, but I think it was fair enough then as well, because if you nominate a website, everyone could get to the same website. So yeah. So it's just a matter from everyone to understand why this other guy has nominated this website and why he's looking at this website and not the other one. So
and then you'd hide.
That was interesting as well.
Yeah, you'd hide a couple of websites in there that were just to make people worried. They were no good, but they just to make people curious. So, okay, let me ask you this then. You personally, as a navigator, what if you're wrong? What if you make a call, we should do this, and then it's wrong? How does that affect you? And how do you go and tell the rest of the crew, I got it wrong?
Well, you have to be open about the decisions. You know that you're not going to get every decision correct. at the end is not about taking every decision right, but it's just about taking most of the decisions right, and especially not put the team in a situation where if you don't get it right, then you're off the race. So basically just managing the risks, and then, well, if something doesn't work as planned, then just take it from there. And there's still a lot of race going on, and just develop your strategy from where you are at the time, not where you could have been.
Okay, so I think that's a really, I completely understand that whole thing, what you're saying about being honest and open. So let me ask you about something where people are not normally honest and open, and people are very secretive, and I'm hoping that you're going to be honest and open with me. Let me ask you about the America's Cup. Your first bid in the America's Cup was in 2003 with Alinghi, and you did 3 campaigns with them, and then you were with Oracle. I believe you're now with Team Ineos doing some weather and meteorology. I could talk to you for the next 6 hours because I've got so many questions about that. But I really want to ask you about what was a very controversial America's Cup, which was 2007. So this was the catamaran versus the trimaran.
2010.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to what it was like to be part of that cup when all of the normal sailing with the America's Cup class, all of that was gone, and now it was build the craziest boat you can. In you go. There was all the things with the court case and the lawyers and everything. But what did it feel like when you got on the water and you thought, well, our boat is crazy, their boat is crazy. Okay, let's see if we can do this. I mean, that must have been bizarre.
Yeah, it's definitely not the America's Cup you'd expect, but that's what it ended up, unfortunately. We just basically had to take it from there. It's kind of a strange feeling, but there's lots of court cases, politics, and so on. So it's not. Sometimes you want to be okay, and let me do my job. My job is to sailing. I just want to forget all about this. But in this case, it's difficult to not to hear anything from the outside and not to hear what's going on, because everyone, all the other sailors, all the other sailing community that obviously hasn't been able to be involved in the America's Cup just because the thing ended up just with 2 boats and with 2 teams. So you have to. It feels like sometimes you have to answer what's going on with, but on the other hand, you don't really want to know about politics. You want to do your job. You want to just do the race, sail, and get over it. Get over it the best we can, and obviously still doing the competition. So still just pushing to win.
For those of us that are lucky enough, the ocean race is quite open. We get to follow it. We get to see a lot of video on board. What is similar from being in the America's Cup, winning, and being in the ocean race, winning? And what is different? How are those 2 worlds, how do they compare?
They have similar things. I mean, in the America's Cup, there's also cameras on board and so on. I think what's different is that in the ocean race, you start a little bit. When you start a race, you start like a little bit in an America's Cup mindset, or not. Let's not the other guys know about what we're doing in the boat, or secrets and so on. You take it a little bit as a team. So that's similar to an America's Cup. But once you have done a couple of legs, then you're normally more communicative with other teams, and kind of tend to share more experiences, especially what is related about safety, on how the crew work, the life on board, and things like this. which can also help for performance. So you tend to feel more that you're also part of the other teams, of a group of teams and you kind of live more together with the other teams, or communicate more with other teams as well. While in the America's Cup it's also quite busy, so everyone ends up into their clans, just not so much because you don't want to talk to other people, but just because you're obviously busy times and you don't really have that much time to say socialize with other teams. So I think obviously the last ocean race, the fact that the boats were one design, it also took much of not being able to see how the other boat is. I mean, everyone was pretty much allowed to go on board another boat and just be convinced that the boats are exactly the same. And so also this takes a lot of just thoughts about if some other boat is cheating and so on. So the boats were maintained with the same crew. They were maintained by a team that was maintaining all the other boats. So that made things more open. So I'd say probably the biggest difference is the communication. Obviously, the spirit of winning and the competitiveness. I think it's the same in America's Cup or Volvo. They're all. You might be more friends with the other teams in the Volvo, but at the end of the day, once you're underwater, you're the same spirit that you would be in America's Cup race.
Well, let's go back to the ocean race then, because let's talk about your team then. Let's talk about Mapfre. And you're the first Spanish sailor to win the ocean race, or the Volvo Ocean Race as it was back in 2001. And Mapfre was really trying to win this race for Spain. It was a strong team. A lot of people on paper were looking at it thinking this is going to be the Spanish team. You joined the team quite late, I think. I think you joined it sort of July-ish, sort of in that summer leading into it. A lot of other people had been there before. You hadn't met Xavi Fernandez. What did the team look like to you? Why did you join that boat? Was it the Spanish flag?
Well, that could help a little bit as well. But I think it's mainly at the end of the day is just about the team and just seeing the persons that were on board, not only on board, but also on the shore team and also just helping out the team or building the team together, like Neil McDonald's, Miles Seldom. So it was almost that just stepping in the team, as you say, quite late, because we had the America's Cup, Xavi as well in Bermuda. So just from there flew over San Chencho and then joined the team. And then obviously it wasn't a surprise, but knowing the people that were involved already before and preparing the boat, preparing the performance package, and just making sure that the boat was getting ready in time, and I think ended up from Bermuda to San Chencho and just almost hopping into a team that was already bonded and a boat ready to go, pretty much there then. So I think that gave us a good head start in the last Volvo Ocean Race.
Because, sorry, you mentioned something, and I completely forgotten. You were in Bermuda, Xavi was in Bermuda, you were sailing for different teams. Is that when he first spoke to you and said, listen, okay, America's Cup, we're on different teams, okay, but for the Volvo Ocean Race, would you like to be on my team?
Yeah, that's correct. That's I mean, that from one project to another, sometimes you're in different teams, and then maybe in the next America's Cup we end up in the same team. And in fact, in this America's Cup, we're on the same team with Xavi. So you never know what's going to happen next. But that was exactly right. That was in Bermuda where we met and started talking about it. And then he started telling me who's the crewer and who is already there working on the boat. And that's almost from there, it was almost a no-brainer for me to that had the feeling that it was going to be a good team, and in fact it was.
So what's Shabby like? You haven't sailed with him before. Of course, he has a reputation. He's got a lot of good sailing results. You're his navigator. This is a very close partnership, navigator skipper. What was he like to work with?
It was very easy. He's basically just doesn't really tell what people should do. He's just basically predicating with the example. So he's basically, if we're going to do a maneuver, he's the first one that he's going to go up and then help. He's obviously a good leader, but he's also delegating a lot. Everyone his responsibility. So he makes you feel, an ownership of your area. So he's not the skipper that he would just tell you, no, let's not do this. And he might obviously give you his opinion and his input, but on every job. So in particular on my job as a navigator, but he was always very supportive of whatever decisions and whatever advice that I was coming up with. So it was pretty easy. I kind of felt that it was going to be because obviously you hear about. I haven't sailed with him before, but you sail with other people that sail with him, and everyone's telling you that how he is, and to me he's really an awesome skipper, and a pleasure to work with him.
One of the things I have to do, and I'm sorry to do it, but I have to ask you about the final leg in the last edition. I spoke to Shabby, I've spoken to Charles, and loads of different factors that I was not aware of, and I think some of the fans were not aware of. It was very shallow inshore. It was choppy. The sea state was very different to the forecast. Looking back at it, it was the most important decision, but we have the best navigators in the world in the fleet, and everybody saw it differently. It reminded me, because I printed it out, when I interviewed Charles Codrelia, and I asked him about that moment where he was coming down the shore, and asked him about what he was thinking in his mind. And he said, this is what he was saying to himself in his mind: if we don't win, I will spend my summer, my year, maybe my life thinking about what I could have done. I feel very sorry now for the others because they will be thinking about any mistakes that might have cost them the race. Is he right? I mean, of course, do you unfortunately go, oh, if we'd have jibed there in the Southern Ocean, if I'd attacked there on the way to Europe, is it inevitable that you're always going to look back and think, oh, I wish I'd have done that a little differently?
Yeah, I think that we always look back. In fact, even through the race, especially at the end of every leg, you always debrief the last leg and try to improve and do things better and to find out the reasons why a call wasn't good, and how can you make better decisions next time, and so on. So the whole thing about the ocean race is about improving in every leg, even if you had a little bit of advantage at the beginning, or you think that you're stronger than other boats. At the end of the race, I think every boat was pretty much conversed to, and pretty much any boat could win even the last leg. Any boat could have won it potentially on paper. They had the knowledge, the sailors, and the capacity to win a leg. So it's a constant improvement. So you always think about what we could have done better, especially at the once the leg is finished. Probably once you're in a leg, you don't think about it. You just go to the next stage and take it from where you are at every time. But sure, and if I had to do another Volvo Ocean race, that's the I would look through every decision that I make on the past race and see why did I make the mistakes, and see what can be done to improve those decisions and those, especially the bad ones. And obviously you look more at the bad ones than at the good ones. You don't really care about the good ones because you're already done well, but where you need to improve is what you haven't done so well. So for sure you'd not so much now because I'm obviously involved in an America's Cup, thinking about other things. But if I had to do the next ocean race, then for sure I would go through all the races that I've done in the past and what I can improve myself to make a better job.
That's the preparation that you were talking about before, going through all the data. Lastly then, because I know that you're working for the next America's Cup, and I'm sure you have a lot of work to do. So last is a question. You've been competing for a long time. I can't remember how old you are now, but you're older than some people and you're still winning. Throughout preparing for this interview, I've seen some amazing different hairstyles that you've had. You had some amazing long curtains in the America's Cup. I like what you have now, don't get me wrong, but you've been doing so much for so many years. In the last America's Cup, you were in the rib, chasing the boats, observing. In this America's Cup, you're advising about the weather. Like you say, if I get forced to do another ocean race, are we going to see you in another ocean race? Are we going to see you in another record-breaking attempt? When is the next time that you're going to take onto a boat in the water on the world stage?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing obviously another ocean race. If you had asked me this question right after the when the last one was finished, I would have said no way, that's my last one for sure. I'm not getting in there. But no, I'm in the times where I'd say, well, why not? I still see myself that I can improve on some things, and then I could do some things better. Yeah, it's the ocean race. It's a special one too. So it's one of those where once you've done it once, you always want to repeat, except at the moment when you finish where you say no. But that's some things you forget after a while. So yeah, sure, that's a race for me to. Especially, being navigators, you always got probably, you can be a little bit older and you still can make it there just because of the knowledge, experience, and so on. And it has the possibility still of, I guess, maybe doing another one, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I haven't talked to anyone yet.
Okay, well, thank you very much for talking to me. Good luck in the America's Cup. I'm not going to claim any bias, but my fingers are crossed for the team that you're involved with, certainly. And thank you very much for talking to me about such a successful career so far. And hopefully we'll see you in the lineup for another race soon.
Thank you very much.
Well, my thanks to Joan Vila for talking to us not only about the race, but all of the amazing sailing that he's done. If you enjoyed this interview, you can subscribe to our channel. We've got many more coming over the next few weeks. And in the comments below, as always, leave us an idea as to who would make the perfect guest for this series. We'll see you next time.